Jordan, good luck with the Stuttgart Surge. Man, I know you're going to coach them up. Kick their ass.
You are from Texas, so naturally you are a Detroit Lions fan, as one would be.
5 years old, 6 years old on one of the Thanksgivings. My dad says I just got mixed up with the Silver and Blues or something happened there.
What is so special about Texas football?
It's who we are. And you're looking around left and right, and constantly all these schools are pushing the envelope to be better. It raises the level of everybody around you, and I think that's been going on in Texas for 30, 40, 50 years.
Was Jerry acting in that scene?
Yeah, Dallas has it's got a little bit of Hollywood in there.
I am disgusted by what you just said. All you're doing as a head coach is you're doing everything you can that the people around you have the resources they need to be successful. It's your number one job as a head coach.
At some point, Nick, you're going to have to get that Michael Jordan photo of him with all the rings on his hand.
George got a lot of rings. Yeah,
I can tell by Nick's face I've disgusted Nick now.
This is Jordan Neuman coming out of Texas, who is one of the most successful football coaches in Germany. I had the pleasure of playing for you for 7 years. You've coached teams to 3 German national championships, 3 German Bowls, 2 European championships. You have been the head coach of the German national team. You hold the record for longest winning streak of any sports team in German history ever. Now you are currently the head coach of the Stuttgart Surge in the European League of Football, going to the championship game in your very first season with the team in the league. Does that sound right?
That's if you say so. Yeah, sounds good.
and also the officiant at my wedding, which is the most important of all.
That is also true. Absolutely. Put that at the top of the list of achievements.
There we go. Okay. And so Scott, we're getting you introduced and acquainted to Jordan here. So Jordan, we wanted to talk about a bunch of different things with you. You're from Texas, obviously. We'll talk a little bit about Texas and high school football, your experience in Europe, college, and where college football is headed with some of the NIL era stuff. But because the most pressing issue right now is the Super Bowl this weekend, we want to start off with a little bit of Chiefs Eagles stuff and extract a little bit of your coaching genius and talk about the Super Bowl this weekend. So the first question that I have, this kind of goes back to when you were my coach and we played against a team that we struggled against for a long time. So Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator of the Eagles, is currently 8-0 versus Patrick Mahomes, going back to his time with the Miami Dolphins and being the head coach of the Denver Broncos. We, I believe, were 0-5 against Scott. It was this team, the New Yorker Lions in Germany, kind of the big, bad team that nobody could beat. And it was year after year of losing to them consistently before finally being able to break through that and win the championship and beat them. How does a guy like Vic Fangio get over that hump and kind of compare it to the times and the mentality that you had, Coach, in trying to get over the hump of losing consistently to the same team over and over?
Yeah, I think the difference there with him is it's his one individual person. From what it sounds like, he's had a couple of different stops and things. I mean, the difference with us is it was a full team, and a team that had pretty much stayed together throughout all those years. So it was like all of us kind of almost Groundhog Day in a way of getting back to this one spot, this one team, this one championship opportunity and falling short several times. The thing that, got us over the hump in those times was just sticking together, feeling like also there was a certain level of success that was rolling, even though we kept losing in those championship games. It was like we felt we were getting closer and closer, and we were building and building because we were, a younger team just kind of bursting onto the scenes at that point compared to kind of an established powerhouse who, they were a great team. So, I think for us, it was just, like I said, just continuing to build, continuing to stay together. And I think belief is probably the biggest word. Like we always believed, every time we went in there that we had a real shot. And I think that belief just kept growing year after year. And as long as for like the Eagles and Fangio, like I said, it's more him personally, as long as his belief's there and, your biggest challenge as a coach is to make sure what you're feeling and what your belief is and that make sure that carries over to the players is so important. And, as a coach, you just have to be so aware that it's not just your speeches you're giving like in the moments to your players. It's that you're literally being observed all the time. The way you're walking around the practice field, people can kind of just feel what you're feeling at those moments. So, for someone like him, he'd have to be very self-aware of that. And as long as he's got that belief, and that belief is being shown with every bit of him from the second he steps into the building until he leaves, I think that carries over, and it's not too big of an issue then at that point.
I remember that back in my playing days with you, the coach. I always felt that from you. I felt that kind of like that calmness and that confidence, and it felt like it just trickled into every aspect and every corner of the team. Sticking with the Super Bowl topic here, obviously you've played, I think, or coached in 6 German Bowls, which is the equivalent. Scott, that's the German Super Bowl over there.
Yeah.
Not quite as big as the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the way you're putting it, it sounds like Jordan here is Bill Belichick of Germany.
That's about right. That's about right, Coach.
Well, there's a couple of people who've won multiple titles. I'm certainly lucky enough to be one of them, for sure.
We'll put you in that Bill Belichick category, but you're in better shape. Even though you don't use your sauna. but with those big win or those big games, like, can you talk a little bit how important it is? Because I'm kind of comparing, not to compare our era with the Chiefs or our kind of dynasty with the Chiefs too much, but there was some similarities there with a lot of core players who are returning year after year, who had played in the big championship game, a lot of coaches. And so there's kind of that consistency there of leaders on the team who had been in the championship game and played at the highest stakes available there. How important is that going into a Super Bowl or a German Bowl? It's like, what do you think that the importance level of that is for the Chiefs, having guys like Mahomes and Kelsey and Coach Reid, who have just been in them so many times?
It's a big deal. I mean, you can't undersell that. I mean, just that experience, that calmness. I mean, it goes to so many little things. That's why it's so hard to win in football, because like so much stuff matters. Like, just knowing the process of how those 2 weeks are going to look like, what's your feeling is when you step out onto that field for a game of that magnitude, just understanding what the emotions are going to be, being able to talk to other people in the locker room of, hey, this is what your emotions are going to be. This is the sights and sounds and smells of this. Just to be able to pass all that along to each other is huge. So like having an experience like that, going into a game like that, it does matter.
Kind of switching gears here, but you were a former quarterback in college, and you have an offensive mind as you approach the game as from the coaching standpoint, right? So what is your take as to, say, an Andy Reid? What separates him seemingly from everybody else and how he approaches the game mentally? And then furthering that, how do you instill that same sort of mental approach in your players as you've gone through your coaching career?
Yeah, so start with what separates Andy Reid. And for me, speaking specifically to him as an offensive coordinator, as an offensive mind, what always impresses me so much is once he gets to the fourth quarters, and you're now 55 plays in, and he will be able to pull out plays in these moments that look like they're a part of his opening 10 play script. Because typically your opening 10 plays are like, hey, we really feel great about these. These are really going to get things going for us. And he's 55, 60 plays deep in the bag, and he's able to pull things out that are just there in the most critical moments. That's always been the thing that I'm so impressed with him. Like, even when you look back to last week, I think it was last week in the AFC Championship game, they had a couple of critical second or third downs to run out the clock, and they were pulling out plays in those moments that were just dialed up so well with perfect timing, and it looked like it should have been in their top 15, but yet he's got these in the bag for play number 65 late in the game. And you saw it when they won, I think in overtime, the last Super Bowl. I mean, to get open that deep into the game for what he does. And it speaks to just their overall success as a team as well. That's always been something I've been so impressed with.
Yeah, he blows, I think, everybody's minds out of the water, or anybody who knows ball to a certain degree. And during your coaching career, how have you gone about helping, say, your quarterbacks or any of those positions that really have the weight of the world on their shoulders when they're out there on the field? How have you helped kind of instill a sound mental strategy and approach for them?
Yeah, so, just with me having played the position, that's always been something very big for me, is just like, how am I interacting and speaking with my quarterback? Like, everything I do, there's probably every thought process I have is how can I make our quarterback comfortable? Like, how can I put him in a position to be successful? And Nick remembers, because when we played, or I was coaching, we had a young quarterback, a German kid who you typically don't see playing the quarterback position. And like in moments like these, like I will do everything I can to deflect pressure off of the quarterback. I will try and put the weight of the world on the defense and on the wide receivers and on the O-line and on the running back, and tell everybody publicly, like, look, this is not on him. This is on you guys. We got to play better defense. We got to block better. We got to run better routes. We got to make plays that we probably shouldn't be making out there. And I'll try and do that as much as I can. And then on top of it, just a constant conversation and an effort to find out how can you best make your quarterback comfortable. And those are conversations not just about plays, but just about what are you needing to see in practice? Like, how do you feel like the periods are going? Are you getting the looks you want to see? So, for me, like, just when I speak about quarterback, it's just really about that. How can I make him the most comfortable possible?
Oh, so that's why you deflected the pressure and put it on us on the defense. That's why I felt so much pressure, huh?
Here's the weight of the world on your shoulders, Nick.
I can carry it. All right. But Scott, Jordan kind of undersold that a little bit. It's absolutely insane. Won a German Bowl championship with a German quarterback, because I think, Scott, a little bit the rules here in Europe. You get two Americans on the field at a time. And so you have two on offense, two on defense. Every single team, 99.9% of teams, of course, get an American quarterback, because they're few and far between German or homegrown European quarterbacks. So the fact that Jordan was able to do that with the German quarterback is insane. And I don't think, Jordan, how many times has that happened, that a German has won a national championship? Twice?
Well, I mean,
In the
Marco won
modern
it
era?
twice. Marco won it twice. In the modern era, it's just twice, and nobody's even been back to the game since with a German quarterback. Been one like in the mid 2000s, I think one did it. I personally had so much experience with it because I did the same thing in Austria with an Austrian quarterback. So we just kind of took that model of winning in Austria when I was there with the Vikings, of having an Austrian quarterback, and said, okay, we can duplicate that. And you talked about, putting the pressure on the defense. I mean, that was one of the philosophies, we talked about losing over and over to New Yorker. It was like, okay, what can we change? And one of the things we said we're going to change is we're just going to stack the defense. I mean, we went in and really made a focus to be as insanely talented as we possibly could over there with how we spent our imports or our resources and stuff. And, that was just kind of one of the things we did. But, you think, okay, I'm just solely focused on having a really good defense. But actually the thought process is how can I help this quarterback be successful? And having a very strong defense obviously helps that.
Yeah.
Nick, that sounds like Mike Tomlin-esque, who you've been bashing on for that approach.
I've been very
Nick.
critical of. Yeah, but Jordan doesn't lead his teams to a nice 500 season every year.
He leads them to wins, yeah.
Great. Okay? He's making the championship game in the semifinals every year, okay? Not sitting here at 9-8 and being heralded as a hero. Ridiculous. No, Mike Tomlin's great. He won a Super Bowl. Jordan, I was going to ask you this because I saw an interesting stat this year that the Chiefs are the least explosive offense, or the second least explosive offense in the NFL. Right? They're like 31st. Almost 30% of the passing plays that they have are passes thrown behind the line of scrimmage. So kind of like a lot of dink and dunk, sideline to sideline stuff, screens and stuff like that. But they used to be able to do explosive plays like back in the Tyreek Hill days, and they won back then too and are winning now. Can you just talk a little bit about, so what I'm getting at is, it's really impressive that they've basically been able to win in totally different types of ways this year and kind of reform their offense around what they have. Can you talk a little bit about having to do that year after year? Because also this year with your guys' team, the Stuttgart Surge, you're losing a couple key offensive weapons and maybe having to reconfigure your offense. Can you just talk a little bit about the process of doing that year by year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously such a good job by Reid just to say, okay, this is our strengths and this is what we're going to do. We got to adapt our offense with who we have. And, you don't want to be dink and dunk with Tyreek Hill, and you don't want to be trying to launch balls over the top if you don't have them. And it's, relatively speaking, it's the same with us here. You lose an explosion wide receiver and you say, okay, well, that guy's not really replaceable. What are we going to do? We just got to do it a different way. We got to go, in the offensive line, get a great running back, get a great tight end, get a import receiver who's going to be a little bit more bigger and a little bit more physical presence. And so you're just kind of playing to your strength. I mean, I always feel like from an offensive perspective is like, just be great at something. I don't care what it is, just be great at something. And then we can use that and we can highlight that. And as long as I can get that, I don't care what it is. And I think that's a recipe and a path to be successful.
But we were touching on it a little bit. And you growing up in Texas, being a Texan through and through, you could hear it in your voice. I love it.
I appreciate the compliment.
No, but look, it's very clear that coming from the States and especially Texas ball, right? There have to have been some challenges that you faced when entering into the world of German football and culture and all of those things. So how did you go about bridging that gap of the understanding of football from the perspective of a Texan, a college player, and then going overseas and trying to develop people who may not have grown up in such a rich football culture?
Mm-hmm. It's just acceptance is the word. If you come over here and you just accept this is the way it is, and then I'm just going to play by these rules, so to speak, that's the key to having success. That's the key to also from an imports perspective. That's a key not only for them having success out here on the field, but that's a key to them enjoying the experience as well. I try to tell guys all the time, look, it's no better, no worse. It's just different. My selling point to anybody that's coming over to play ball is like, look, you just got to understand it's a different football culture. And I'll sell them on, hey, look, we don't practice 6 times a week. We don't have all the facilities right there. I try and tell them everything that's different that sounds negative, but then I'll try and reel them back in and tell them, hey, I want you to understand very clearly. I have many players here who are German, who are Division I, FBS or FCS level scholarship football players that would be playing that if they grew up in the States. They just happen to be growing up here in Germany. So, yes, things are different. You got to just accept things are different. There is a model and a path to coaching players at an extremely high level. I mean, Nick's played with some European players that had played in the NFL. That went, from our teams into the season. We'll send one guy, he's going over to basically NFL camp, so to speak, for global players and got a shot at the NFL. Another one's going to CFL. They're flying him over to compete, in a combine. So, yeah, it's just acceptance, understanding it is what it is, but also being very proud of the fact that there's still extremely high-level athletes here to coach.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it because, especially like for a guy coming directly out of college, especially if you played at maybe a little bit of a higher level college and are used to certain amenities or facilities, what have you. But when you're able to frame it like that, because actually when it comes down to what's happening on the football field, it's actually really, really impressive. And who's the guy, Jordan, that is going over? Who are you just talking about? Is it Louis Geyer?
So Louis Geyer got the CFL combine invite. He'll be flying over to take part in their combine. And Lenny Krieg, our kicker, has just been invited to or will be invited to the NFL IPP. I hope I'm not saying anything out of turn here, breaking any news. But
breaking news. You heard it here
this
first.
Is an American channel, so I'll roll.
Got the scoop.
Basically, I'm selling the point that there's really quality guys over here.
Yeah, and then Scott, there was Moritz Bunger played on our team, and he with the Unicorns, and he was the first player drafted in the NFL draft without playing high school or college football. So it was like pretty historic.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
Well, this guy, Moritz is such a great. For us, it was just Moritz. It was just this freak athlete we had, and everybody knew he was a great player. And the story with him is actually he's such a humble, quiet guy. The story with him is so interesting because it was just one day after practice. He just called me over. And he's like, "Hey, coach, I'm not going to be at practice next week. I'm going to go to the States." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. You going on vacation? What's going on?" He's like, "No, I'm going to practice." It's like, "Practice?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, with the NFL." And I said, "What? The NFL?" He's like, "Yeah, I just got I'm going to go try out. And then I'll be back like a week later after that." Right. That was how it developed. And then a week and a half later, we finish practice. We all go sit down as a staff, after practice, and somebody pulls up their phone and he's the lead guy on the NFL.com because nobody that size has run that fast since Calvin Johnson. I think basically was what his statistics were or what he put down. So pretty impressive. And then all of a sudden he's a 6th-round draft choice.
Yeah. Unbelievable. It's so funny because Moritz is so quiet and soft-spoken. It just makes like such a small deal out of being able to go over to the States and do this training. It's just hilarious. While we're talking a little bit on on the European football stuff. Can you, Jordan, just because I think a lot of people that are going to watch this are not even that aware about the European League of Football. And so can you just kind of give a little bit of a rundown, a lay of the land of the European League of Football, the team that you're coaching for, the Stuttgart Surge, and kind of give a little bit of color to that to some Americans who might not know about the ELF?
Yeah, it's just basically we have an American football league out here all over Europe, basically modeled after the NFL, basically trying to model as many things as we can that way. And that speaks to just, our rules are a perfect example of it. We play by NFL rules. I think 7 or 8 different countries now or so. I mean, there's several teams in Germany and Austria and Switzerland, in Denmark, in France, and, we have different divisions. We play a regular season, then we finish off with a championship game, and that championship game continues to grow in popularity. And when we played in it 2 years ago, I think there was about 35,000 people there. And then last year, I think there was over 40. And this year, they anticipate even more than that. So, it's a sport that's continuing to grow. It's a sport, especially for our league, who is becoming more and more present overseas to the Americans as well that are coming over. I mean, right now we have Jack Del Rio, for example, an NFL head coach that's going to be here now or, taking over a team. And so there's more and more NFL coaches. There's more and more Division I coaches, Division I players. So it's just growing year by year. And they just signed a deal with DAZN. I don't know how popular that is in America or how much people know about what that is, but it's basically a global streaming service, which is also a big deal for our league.
Yeah. The zone thing is pretty big because it might be bundled with the ELF, might actually be bundled with the NFL Game Pass. So it'll be really getting a lot more eyeballs on it. So it'd be very, very cool. So people, if you have not watched ELF football, it's damn entertaining. Also, it goes in the NFL offseason. So Scott,
you got these two eyes that are coming to view some of it. So I'm pumped about it because we were just talking about it. We're facing the void of a long time without NFL football. So if I could satiate that itch or any way, ELF is it.
It's
a great substitute for the summer for sure.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Jordan, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but going back to the Super Bowl here, I guess I am going to put you on the spot. I would like to ask politely or demand a prediction for what is going to happen this weekend. Who do you think is going to come out on top? Is Patty Mahomes going to be able to do the three-peat, or is hothead, fiery Nick Sirianni and the Eagles going to spoil the fun?
I mean, I think it's going to be the Chiefs simply. Yes, it's Mahomes, but it's not just Mahomes by himself. It's the Reid-Mahomes combination. Those two guys seem to always just kind of figure it out. I mean, that's one of the biggest gets as an offensive coordinator is, I always think of it in a way is like, it's not just these big plays Mahomes make for touchdowns and stuff like that, it's maybe the play's not there. The look's not there. He's able to scramble out, make a throw, make a play, pick up 7, that extends a first down. And what that does for you as an offensive coordinator, it just gives you a fresh set of downs and a new opportunity as opposed to giving the ball back on a punt. And that's really what you're looking for as a coordinator. If you can just give me as a quarterback, just a new opportunity for a fresh set. And that's what Mahomes does so well. And then vice versa. When Mahomes is bailing Reid out, in those situations, that's obviously great. And then it goes the other way. Sometimes Reid is setting Mahomes up with stuff that, any quarterback in the league, could complete or do, so those guys are constantly playing off each other. And I think for that reason, it's just Chiefs will find a way.
Yeah. You were talking about letting, or at least getting your quarterback to feel comfortable and putting a lot more pressure on the defenses and everything like that. How do you, from a coach's perspective, how do you think that relationship grew to the point at which it is? Because it feels like Mahomes is just playing around, backyard ball back there, but Reid is just such a stoic dude on the sideline, and it doesn't seem like anything's phasing him. It was all part of the plan. So could you maybe give some insight from a coach's perspective as to how that looks and how that came to be?
Yeah, I think that, you probably year for year, Mahomes got more and more opportunity to, whether it be the playbook grew or the check system at the line grew, I'm sure. And I'm sure he was much more reliant on athletic ability and just making something out of nothing early. And the more they went, the less he had to do that because he was just on it, So I think that relationship's grown in that sense. And then, on top of it, I mean, he's getting older and, it doesn't matter at that point if the athleticism is kind of going back down a little bit, because now he's to the point where he's able to just kind of pick you apart at times when he needs to do it as well. So, I think it's just a relationship that's grown. You can see it. You can see how in sync they are. You can see how Reid probably has made him feel very comfortable to ad lib, to allow him to kind of just be himself and play his game out there. But I'm sure they've had several conversations behind the scenes of, hey, let's reel it in. Let's know when to, let's know when to press it. Let's know when to peel back here a little bit. So I think they found a great balance with each other.
How comfortable do you feel when your quarterback is ad libbing?
Depends. I mean, there's a time and a place. Man. And that's the hardest fine line to walk as a quarterback. Of, man, I'm going to press this and try and make a play here, or I just know it's time to eat it and play another down. It's a fine line to walk.
Do you think those conversations probably intensified this year, because we all know that Mahomes wasn't playing to the caliber and level that we're all accustomed to seeing him playing at, especially this year? Crazy how they are where they are right now, with that being the case. But do you think those conversations even later in Mahomes' career intensified?
Yeah, I think from a standpoint of the Chiefs, it's probably like, hey, look, we don't need to win the way we used to. We don't need to go be high flying and put up 42 points. It doesn't matter. It's to some degree, that's ego at that point. If you're trying, it's not what's in the cards for your football team. Now it's more like, hey, look, we know what we got. We can, we know if we can just keep this thing close. We know we got the experience to go put a drive together late when we need it, or get a first down late when we need it. And that's the game we're going to play. So let's swallow some ego. Let's not try and take these shots and try and focus on putting 40 up. Let's play the game this way. Let's play to our defense a little bit. And yeah, so I think those are probably some more of the conversations that are being had now.
Jordan, sticking with the NFL, obviously you are from Texas, so naturally you are a Detroit Lions fan, as one would be. First of all, what? Is that not? Can you explain how that came to be, how you came to be a Detroit Lions fan? And then, well, explain that first, and then let's talk a little bit about the Lions this year and what's going on with them.
Yeah, so I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, which is basically the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So naturally, all my family was just diehard Cowboy fans, But ever since I was, I think, 6 years old, on one of the Thanksgivings, my dad says I just got mixed up with the Silver and Blues, or something happened there. But I got locked in, and I have been a diehard fan ever since. I mean, I'd probably say over a 35-year span, never miss a game. Doesn't matter if I was out here, and this was back in 2005, when I'm over here in Germany. I can remember sitting in front of my brother-in-law's computer listening to it on the radio stream, because we didn't have the Game Pass and stuff like we had back then. So yeah, I've been a diehard fan for a long time. But to be honest, I'll take the Lions over the Cowboys any day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially with this new Marty Schottenheimer, or Ryan Schottenheimer hire here. But sticking with the Lions, your mix-up team that you are now. It's fun to be a Lions fan. Didn't used to be. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on there? How I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you've lost multiple coaches like Dan Campbell is this year, but they're kind of, they got pretty close. They thought that maybe this was their year. Didn't quite turn out the way that they were hoping. And now things are kind of, I don't want to say falling apart, but they're definitely going to need to rebuild a little bit. Can you talk about that from a coach's perspective, losing people?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate to be with a group of coaches for a long time. This is one of our strengths and why we've had success, just the continuity. So I haven't had to be going through it. What I can say about the Lions is Dan Campbell had to have seen this coming. He knew it was coming. I would think he's been preparing other coaches to step up and fill roles like they did with their defensive coordinator position. They got somebody from in-house. Their offensive coordinator, they got somebody that was with them in 2022, I believe. And then also from the Lions' perspective, I don't think people give near enough credit to Dan Campbell and his intellectual prowess of who he is as an offensive mind. I mean, this guy's a tight end. Tight ends are typically one of the more intellectual, smarter out of the quarterback, just because they've got to be the run game and the pass game and the protections as well. And, that's what he played. He was under Sean Payton for a long time. Back in 22, I believe it was, he took over play calling duties, ran his offense, and then Ben Johnson, I believe, came in later. So I don't think he was just some guy sitting on the sidelines watching Ben Johnson do his thing. I think he was involved. I think a lot of stuff was his stuff. Obviously, a lot of stuff was Ben Johnson's stuff as well. So, Lions will be okay. And it goes back to culture. I think culture wins out over, almost everything. And, as long as they have that there, they'll be able to replace the coordinators. He had a plan, and I think that plan's coming to fruition right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things, okay, we're talking about Mahomes, we're talking about the Lions, so my mind automatically goes to like Matt Stafford and what he did there for so long and how well he played and how good he is. And then you look at even Dan Campbell, being a A&M Aggie and all that kind of stuff. So you too, being a Texan, what is so special about Texas football? And I'm talking about from like ground up. Why does it seem to be such a hotbed for raising and generating just top-notch talent?
Yeah, it's just it matters more, I guess I would say. It just matters so much to us. It's a part of like just again goes to the word culture. It's who we are, I mean, it's like that Friday night football is more than just a football game happening. That is a culture gathering in a sense of this is what we do on Friday nights or Saturdays. And people take so much pride in it. And it's just, like I said, it's just ingrained to us. And, when you have that, obviously, then, there's going to be such a drive for success. And, and I think it's also, when there's that drive for success, it's like these schools are pushing each other. Like everybody's pushing the envelope of getting better facilities, better coaching, better playing on the field, all that, better off seasons, and when you're looking around left and right and constantly all these schools are pushing the envelope to be better and better, it raises the level of everybody around you. And I think that's been going on in Texas for, 30, 40, 50 years. And because of that, because it has such a strong history and a strong competition and everybody pushing each other to get better, that's why I think it's at where it's at now, with not just what they're doing on the field, but whenever you look around in the stands, when you look around at facilities, you look around at stadiums, I think those are the reasons that it's so ingrained in our DNA and why it's having the success that it has.
Yeah. And also can't be like, if you're a high school football coach in Texas, you can make a pretty damn good living down there, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, those guys make a good living for sure. You got opportunities, which is an advantage where you just get to focus on ball. And so certainly those are good jobs to have.
So the embellishment of Friday Night Lights, Permian, all of that kind of stuff, it's not too much of an embellishment. Is it accurate?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's too much of an embellishment. Maybe there's a thing here or there, a story here or there, maybe a little bit. But I mean, yeah, this stuff matters. People take a lot of pride in it. Absolutely. I mean, to this day, some of the great memories I have is playing high school football, back in Texas. And, it's just, it's pretty special. It is.
Yeah. And Friday Night Lights, Billy Bob Thornton there also is in Landman, another great Texas show. A lot of great stuff comes out of Texas. Did you finish Landman, by the way?
I have. Absolutely. It was outstanding.
I have no spoilers. I have yet to watch, so I've been holding it on my queue.
Very good show. And Taylor Sheridan, Billy Bob Thornton, that's a match made in heaven right there.
Oh, okay. Jordan, was Jerry acting in that scene? Can you give us a third party take on this?
Was he acting in that scene, or do you basically mean was he just basically talking about his life?
Let's clarify. Yes.
He
was acting, but Jordan, was that a truthful representation of Jerry Jones's life, do you think?
Was it scripted?
I'm sure there was some scripting, but I'm also sure that there was some real life stuff playing out to him. I mean, when you know the story of him and when you've I would not claim to say I've been around him a lot. I do have a lot of respect and thankfulness for Jerry Jones because he has sent a couple of videos for me and to me personally that we were able to post on our social media, whether it was with the Unicorns or with the Surge, and what he has done as someone for just the game of football in general, and just his story of what he built, the risks he took. I just have so much respect for him and what he's been able to do. So saying that and just kind of knowing a little bit of his story and knowing people who have been around him a lot, I do think there is some genuine stuff coming out in that moment because I do think his family matters a whole lot to him, and that is truly how he feels.
There we go, Scott. See, he wasn't acting. It's totally real. We got a real Texan to prove it. Okay? Scott, Jordan, this is what happened. Scott, I was being very forgiving of Jerry Jones for some of the moves because I felt a lot of appreciation for his love for his family because of that landman scene. And so
Nick knows how to sit on a fence.
Scott doesn't believe it, and he doesn't like it at all there. Oh yeah, it was really cool. The videos I remember, Scott. So it was like before we were going to play in the German Bowl, maybe Jordan, and we were somewhere. You're like, hey, look at this. My brother.
No,
just
so
texted me.
after we won our second championship in Strabish Hall, Jerry Jones sent us a video in Strabish Hall Unicorns. Congratulations on being back-to-back champions, and we're proud of you, and all that kind of stuff. And then with the Surge, Jerry Jones sent me another video of just, hey, Jordan, get after those guys in Stuttgart and stuff like that. So that's what I mean. I mean, I know I said earlier, I'll take the Lions over the Cowboys. That's my love for my team for sure. But there's also just a huge respect for Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys and who they are as an organization. And I know for sure the people I know would give anything to see that organization start having a little bit more success.
Yeah, well, not to harp too much on the Cowboys, but what do you think that they need to do to turn around? Because that is such a pillar of American culture right there, the Dallas Cowboys, and it's the most valuable sports franchise in the world. And the world is better, I think, when the Dallas Cowboys are competitive. How do they turn it around?
Well, they're still, people might not like hearing this, or even roll their eyes on it. I still feel they're America's team in a sense, because when they're on, people watch. So like, I loved it. Lions caught so much fire over the last 2 years. They became like America's darlings in a sense. Is who they are as a football team. So the TV ratings did come out, and it was Lions were the number one most watched team this year, and number two was the Dallas Cowboys. Still, even where they are, where they're at. And then I believe, I can't remember if it was somebody on the Chiefs or the Eagles. I'm almost positive it was the Chiefs. They interviewed him and they asked him, they said, what's the difference in the culture between the Chiefs and the Dallas Cowboys? And he was like, no disrespect or anything like that. But when you're with the Chiefs, he said, this is only about football. That's it. It's about winning and it's about ball. The second you walk in the door, he's like, in Dallas, there's so much more of a spectacle to it. I mean, everything is so much more grand. There's so much more popularity around the team. There's so much more kind of outside of just the football. Blessing and a curse in a sense for Dallas and Jerry Jones and what he's built, which is so great, whether it's the stadium or the Star, which is their practice facilities. If anybody's familiar with the Star practice facilities with Dallas, it's pretty amazing what they have. And yeah, so I mean, I thought that was an interesting take on it and something I can completely understand at that point.
Being a little bit of like devil's advocate, or not the biggest like Cowboys fan out there, do you think that's a huge detriment and it's kind of getting away from, we were talking about the Texas culture and it being all about ball. It's part of the culture. It's just you do what needs to be done in order to succeed as a team and so on and so forth. Do you feel like the growth and for all that Jerry has brought to the table, not just for the Cowboys, but for the NFL at large, do you feel like that there might have been a slight deviation from what Texas and the Cowboys really is at its core?
Yeah, I mean, look, these guys want to win as much as anybody, so I never doubt that with Dallas. You know, it's just, man, they just haven't been able to put it together, unfortunately. And, you know, it's hard to put your finger on exactly what. I mean, maybe there's some decisions made that haven't been great. Okay, that's fair. You can give it, you know, that. But, man, it's hard to really put your finger on exactly what went wrong. I mean, I'm sure you talk to a Dallas Cowboy, they can tell you all the moves that have been made over the past years that they might not have liked. But for sure, I mean, again, it goes back to the player who was talking on the Chiefs, and he just said that's the difference he feels at the moment is just kind of Dallas. There's a little bit more to it, and in Kansas City, it's just a little bit more about just ball.
Yeah, Dallas has it's got a little bit of Hollywood in there, but it's glamorous.
I'm disgusted by what you just said.
Jordan, you are so California. I've been in the habit of disgusting our guests on this show. I gotta stop doing that. I would like to talk a little bit about college football. As we've hit high school, we've hit college, or NFL, we've hit ELF, college football, because that's changing so dramatically and drastically now with the NIL era and players getting paid. And I just wanted to get your take on it. And also, did you ever have interest in coaching in college? Because you've had so much success over here. I would imagine that there's probably some communications or people interested in you. Do you ever have any desire for coaching in America in college football?
Yeah, so I mean, the plan for me was always to come over here, play, and then go back and coach in Texas, whether that be high school or college. That was always my plan. I just happened to meet my wife, like I think a month after I stepped off the plane here in 2005, and I've been with her for 20 years now. So things kind of changed for me like that. So I always wanted to go back and do it, but ended up just kind of making life here. Um, Now, as far as college and the NIL and everything going on there, as I've talked to coaches who are out here now coaching in the ELF, and they'll talk to me before or after game and just say, you can't even recognize what the game has basically become now, of how different it is in college. I do think obviously on a smaller level, especially when the amount of money that's thrown around and stuff like that, but the setup is very similar here in the ELF. And what makes it very difficult with the portal and NIL is basically everybody's a free agent every offseason. So you are literally having to deal with possibly reloading your entire team at times, if it comes to that. Obviously, it doesn't happen so dramatically on college football teams, but there could be several players that lose, and it could be several key players that you lose. So you're constantly in a state of recruiting all the time. You're in a state of recruiting during your season. It's week 5. Just want to check in on them, make sure things are going okay, and which could be a positive. Very much a positive, because as a coach, you can't get lackadaisical and just think, oh, okay, I've got this guy locked up. You need to be checking in on your athletes, making sure they're having a great experience, because that's something we talk about here all the time, is like, it's all about player experience. Because if you can give a player a great experience, he's going to want back. And if he comes back, it creates continuity, and continuity creates success. So I think college coaches are now very much in a state of 24/7 having to be able to create player experiences in order to not lose them to the transfer portal and NIL.
Yeah, I remember that back. The second our season would end, you would get on the phone with all of us imports, like, all right, let's recruit you back for next year, and it was it was a constant. You remember in 2018, Jordan, when I told you I wanted to take a visit to Florence, but I wasn't going to actually. We were in the hospital. I had broken my finger, and I said, I'm just going to take a visit. They're offering me a free visit. I promise you, I'm not going to actually go there. I'm just going to take a visit.
I was probably all over you at that point. Just probably constant calls, showing up at your apartment, talking to you, doing all these things. But yeah, I mean, it takes a lot. It takes a lot out of these coaches, I'm sure, to be able to really recruit 80 guys constantly.
Yeah, and going back to the college football recruiting. Do you think, or even just being a college football coach in general, do you think there's anything especially appealing for you there that would make you, okay, I would like to actually dive into that world?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it's always intriguing. It's always something you think, you never know if at some point you get a call or an opportunity or something happens that you really look into. I mean, for me, obviously family plays the biggest role in everything, but if there's ever an opportunity that makes it all fit, for sure, it absolutely could become interesting, especially back in my home state.
Oh, maybe the key to the Dallas Cowboys is hiring Neuman as their coach. What do you think? Once Schottenheimer goes one and done and they're looking for a new culture, then that's what we do.
Who knows, man? Maybe the Schottenheimer thing works out. You never know.
Yeah, he's got it in his blood. A lot of wins coming from that bloodline.
Yeah,
I can tell by Nick's face. I've disgusted Nick now.
Yeah, you disgusted me. That was such a boring vanilla hire. I thought there was all these rumors, maybe Dion, maybe it could go bigger, don't you think?
I mean, you're the Dallas Cowboys. That for sure should be a job that anybody in the world would want to take.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But you look, I mean, I don't think it's as big of a surprise as it should be, because you look over the past decade and going all the way back to ever since Jimmy, I feel like it's been pretty much like dudes very similar to a Schottenheimer or a McCarthy or somebody. I want to call them vanilla, but they're probably just like a more quote unquote safe choice. Stalwart football dudes. There's not a whole lot of flash that comes with them, because that just comes along with being part of the Dallas Cowboys head coach. And doesn't mean that the individual itself has to be that person, right?
Yeah, I mean, they did have Parcells at one time. I think that was probably
fair.
The biggest splash hire, that they had at one point. I mean, but there has been, I guess I could understand seeing that point of, there's kind of been a similar mold, I guess you could say, over the past kind of 20 years of kind of who's been in and out, of that revolving door.
Jordan, you told me one time about the kind of the rising up the coaching ladder. I mean, obviously you've gone from every single step and gone from, position coach to coordinator now to head coach / also sort of GM in a sense in certain years. Can you talk about just how that everything changes for you and the responsibilities and the mentality kind of change, especially going from a coordinator to a head coach?
Yeah, I tell guys all the time, like from coaches, like, hey, look, if you truly just want to have fun, and what's the funnest thing you can possibly do, and that's get to a coordinator role and then stop and then don't go any further, because then, man, that's just all about ball. That's your only focus is your X's and O's and how to make that side of the ball better, and it's so much fun to get to do that. Now, having said that, if you're someone who has a passion for, you think you can really truly influence the entire organization in a way, and you felt you're kind of led to do something like that, then absolutely go become a head coach. And as much as I love that coordinator role, I just kind of felt called that I felt like I can have a bigger impact and bigger role with the head coaching position and doing some things that I do feel I have some strengths and ability to do, which is why I still like being the head coach. Although, I can look back at my coordinator times and be like, man, that is so much fun being able to have that role.
I don't think that if you were just the offensive coordinator all these years on my team that I would ask you to be the officiant at my wedding. The head coach.
Okay. What a great example.
Those are the type of things.
Yes,
that's the difference,
absolutely.
right?
So if you could give someone like a Ben Johnson any words of wisdom in making that jump, what would that be?
Yeah, you just can't underestimate that your role is now everything, literally everything to that football team and that organization. I mean, I think Jimmy Johnson said it once. He was like, man, when you're a coordinator or something and you're walking down the hallway and you're, running into maybe some of the defensive guys or the secretaries or the lunch pool or whoever the case may be, it's not a big of a thing, and they're just going to keep rolling. But now you're the head coach and everybody is expecting some type of relationship. Everybody, if there's some sort of issue or something like that, is going to be brought to you. And you just have to be so aware and accepting of that you truly have to be that person for everybody. And you should want to be that person for everybody. You would want to hear anybody's complaints or anybody's issues. How can you make that experience better? Because ultimately, you want, I was at, talking at AMG, is that right? This is going to sound terrible, but Mercedes, I believe their luxury car division or whatever, right? And I was talking to some of the higher ups there, and he said, really the focus and the goal is, you have a ball of energy, and your focus and goal is to get 100% of that ball of energy directed in the right spot. And if you can do that, you're going to have a successful business, you're going to have a successful team. But the second things start chipping away at that ball of energy, and that becomes 90%, 80%, 70% due to issues, distractions, problems, that's when your performance is going to dip. So as a coach, you're constantly trying to keep that ball of energy at 100% and focus is exactly where it needs to be. Because as soon as it starts being stripped away, you start seeing teams dip in success. The talent hadn't changed. The coaching staff hadn't changed. Well, what's the issue? Well, the issue is there might be something going on in the locker room. They just aren't being able to bring it because football's such an emotional game and it's so hard to practice and then go out there and execute and play on the weekends that you need all of that resources of energy directed in the right place. And that's one of your biggest challenges as a head coach, is to make sure that is all directed in the right place. And if you can do that, you're going to be successful.
Damn, that was beautiful. Ben Johnson, take note.
Listen,
I kind of want to end on that. That was so good. I do have one last question. And Scott, I don't know if you have another one. My last question would be, Coach, what coaches have you admired or looked up to kind of in your coaching journey, whether it be when you were younger and whether it be coaches that you actually worked with or coached under, or maybe somebody in the NFL that you just kind of admired from afar, their coaching style?
Yeah. There's a few coaches. One coach I really loved, Augie Garrido, is the head baseball coach at the Texas Longhorns back in the mid 2000s. I love just how competitive he was and how demanding he was of his players. that was always one I really like watching. I'll still watch now some of the highlights of him speaking to his team and how he talked to them and how he built them up and how he, like, the expectation he had for those teams. And I always thought that was really cool. And then out here, I was fortunate to play for or coach under two different coaches that are really successful out here with Chris Kalaikai and Ziggy Gerke. One's an American, one's a German. One, the American, coached, had spent time at Cal, had a very much more traditional American football coaching style in a sense, but it was able to adapt his style to the European game. And that was great to see somebody blend that. And then, I got to coach under Ziggy Gerke, who completely threw tradition out the window with how he did things and what he did and the style he took about things. And then, so just to be able to take those things from those different people, I would say are probably some of my bigger influences. And then just constantly being humble enough and knowing that, you're constantly learning from everybody all the time, even your assistant coaches and players, and listening to people and always trying to just kind of, hear where, you need to get better or things you need to improve, I would say.
Yeah. The only other question I would add to that and want to throw the grenade in here is just like, what is one piece of advice from one of those individuals you talked about that has stuck with you throughout your entire coaching journey?
One piece of advice. Probably it's just about being a servant leader. I say this too now. This is ingrained in me. It's like the higher you get up, the higher you climb the ladder, the less I have felt like a boss. I mean, the once I got to head coach, at that point, you're basically you're now just serving people is really what you're doing. All you're doing as a head coach is you're doing everything you can that the people around you have the resources they need to be successful. And that's, I feel like, almost your number one job as a head coach.
Yeah, that's the thing. I remember you saying that all of the problems now flow up to you, and you have to go around and maybe solve like some of the most minute problems that happen in an organization.
There's just so little of, hey, do this, do that, do this, do this. It is so much more. Hey, what do you need? How can I fix this problem for you? That way you can maximize what you need to be doing. It's just so much more of that.
Yeah. Well, that should dispel anybody who questions how you've been so successful, because clearly it's been the right formula for you.
Working pretty well. And this year, ELF championship, right?
It's always a goal, man. I mean, people ask goals every year. It's boring. Yeah, we're here to try and go win a title. That's what we're here for. We'll talk about it at the first of the season. We'll say it one time, and then after that, we just go to work on a day-to-day basis.
At some point, Nick, you're going to have to get that Belichick photo of him or the Michael Jordan photo of him with all the rings on his hand.
George got a lot of rings. A disgusting amount of rings. And we hope we get another one on here soon. All right, there it is. Coach Jordan Neuman. That was fantastic, Coach. I love that. It was great.
I appreciate it. Appreciate you guys having me on. It was fun.
Awesome. There we go. Thank you, everybody, for watching No Warmup. Check out the Stuttgart Surge and the ELF. We will see you.